in the Zoom. It'll save the CA some money as well, so that's a good thing.
And through the chair, it says that we are live.
Thank you very much, Director Flanagan. And so with that, I will call to order this meeting of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors. It is 9 o'clock, 9:01 actually, on September the 23rd of 2022. Pleased to be with you virtually again, and we will be meeting in person. We met in person in August, and we will be meeting in person again in the future. Just a couple of things I want to tell you about the Festival of Fort Willow, which is coming up on October the 1st. This is a very big deal for the Conservation Authority. It's on Grenfell Road in Utopia, and there will be all sorts of historic displays. And actually, do we have a member of staff who can speak a little bit to what we will see when we go to Fort Willow? Director Flanagan?
I believe Kyra House is on the call and she can speak to it.
Hi, Kyra. Happy to hear what you have to say about Fort Willow, just so that
Good
we know.
morning. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chair McLeod. The festival at Fort Willow is going to be a great event. We've got lots of demonstrations. We've got lots of reenactors that are going to be coming in doing historic demonstrations. So we've got wood carving demonstrations. We've got fur traders. We've got lots of military demonstrations, because obviously it was an important part during the War of 1812. So the actual site, the Fort Willow Conservation Area, is part of a historic portage route between Lake Simcoe and Georgian Bay. So it was used by Indigenous people way before we started using the site as well. So there's Indigenous representation as well. So it's going to be a great event. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Fort Willow, of course, is, as you said, was an important stop between Lake Simcoe and the Nottawasaga River, which of course has its terminus at Wasaga Beach, and the Nancy Island historic site is connected, of course, to what happened at Fort Willow and when the Nancy was bombed by the American forces, and then the survivors of that attack rode to basically Sault Ste. Marie. It's just, I don't understand why it hasn't been turned into a movie. It would be amazing. How mad do you have to be to row 450 nautical miles and then steal some ships and fight and win the war? So thank you very much for that. So I will call this meeting to order, and I will turn to Member Manktolo to read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Saulteaux, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and Algonquin, who spoke several languages, including the Anishinaabe-Bowen and the Potawatomi. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people.
Thank you. I will look for declarations of pecuniary or conflicts of interest from members of the board at this time. Are there any? Seeing none, I will look for a motion to adopt the agenda. And if you'll go to your on-board voting procedures, it is moved by Councillor Matrosovs and seconded by Councillor Watson. Resolved that the agenda for the Board of Directors meeting number 08-22-BOD dated September 23, 2022 be approved. And we have yeses from Member Manktolo, Mercer, Watson, and Pinto, just so you know, Director Flanagan.
And through the chair, that motion has carried.
Marvelous. Announcements. I don't have any announcements, and the CA has no announcements. Do any of the members have announcements at this time? I see none. And presentations, we have none at this meeting today either, nor do we have deputations, nor do we have hearings. And so at this point, I will ask for items requiring separate discussion. Of course, this comes from the consent list, which is number 12 on your agenda. There are several things, staff reports and the adoption of the minutes that are contained therein. Do we have any items that are pulled for the for separate discussion, Director Flanagan?
So through the chair, staff pulled the budget, as staff will do a quick discussion and presentation on it. Other than that, no, nothing has been pulled. One other quick note, Deputy Mayor Michael Smith, it does not appear to be on this. Oh. You were me.
Whoops.
Sorry about that. Carrie had accidentally unmuted, so we were having feedback beside each other. Deputy Mayor Michael Smith does not appear to be here, and he was the seconder for this motion, so we will need a new seconder.
Thank you very much. And I see, who do I see? I see Member Bonato. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that is item 12.2.5. I would also like to ask that we pull item number, where are we at here? It is the one wherein we're talking about the inventory of programs, 12.2.4. And I apologize to CAO Hebner. I did not give you a heads up on this, that I was going to ask you to speak to it, but I know that you're so deeply immersed in it that you can definitely speak to it. And so moved by Mayor Allen and seconded by Deputy Mayor Bonato, resolved that agenda item number 12.2.4 and 12.2.5 were identified as requiring separate discussion, be referred for discussion under agenda item number 9, and further that all consent list agenda items not referred for separate discussion be adopted as submitted to the board, and staff be authorized to take all necessary action required to give effect to the same, and further that any items in the consent list not referred for separate discussion and for which conflict has been declared or deemed not to have been voted on or discussed by the individual making that declaration. And I'll ask you to go to your on board and cast your vote on that one as well. Let me see if I can find mine. I really probably should be able to find that, shouldn't I? There it is. And back to Zoom. There we go. Oh, we have a yes from Member Mangtalo, a yes from Member Mercer, a yes from Member Watson, and a yes from Member Pinto, and a yes from Mayor Allen. I'm going to say just based on that it passes, right, Director Flanagan? Okay, great.
Yes, it's passed.
Super. So 11 has passed. And so that takes us to item 12.2.4. And I will look to Director or CAO Hebner just to bring us up to date, if you'd be so kind, on where we are on the inventory of programs and services. And really what I'm looking for is where we are on the memoranda of understanding with our partner municipalities, just so that everybody knows where we're at right now.
Through the chair, if I may, I don't think my video is working. Can you see me?
No, I can see you.
Okay, all right, good. I can't see me, so there we go. As you see from the report, we haven't had a lot of interaction with municipal members in the last, since this last submission in July for our October 1st meeting. We did meet with Collingwood, and it's the third meeting we've had with Collingwood, and Sonia and I have decided that we'll continue to meet on a quarterly basis with them throughout this whole year. So we've identified that. Cheryl, in my absence last week, recently was attending the general managers meeting where they spoke collectively about the programs and services. Cheryl suggested that TRCA has a lot of information on their site. They're moving along quite quickly through this. Although of all of the CAs in Ontario, TRCA was basically set up this way because they do a tremendous number of service level agreements with their municipal partners. And they have the primary funders. They don't have this huge municipality shakeup that we do in membership. So that was one that was identified as moving along. And at our last meeting, I did mention that Maitland was. Other than that, everyone else is pretty much collectively on the same point of view. We're moving forward after the election. We'll pick things up with our board members. We did touch base with Oromodonte, and resent them the programs and services information to their staff, in addition to the mayor and CEO. And that's where we are right now. As far as the MOU that we're working on, we continue to develop a strategy on how we want to frame this, whether we want to write one single MOU and try to work that with each municipality. That's our goal here. So once we start to get that interaction and feedback, we'll have a more fulsome discussion on the programs and services, Chair.
That was over. Those days were over. You're muted. Thank you very much for that, CIO Hebner. Any questions or comments from members of the board? Member Bonato.
Just a quick question for CAO Hebner. When you say you want to write one MOU for all municipalities, will it fit between an urban municipality and a rural municipality in the way of services? Because they're going to be quite different in what they want for services.
Well, in the conversations that I've had, there hasn't been a lot of mention of change from the current system that we're using right now to one that's being brought forward. We look at this as one MOU. The MOU would identify clearly what the mandates of the MECP are. So we'd identify those and we would come into agreement that both parties are going to honor those. So that would be the body of the MOU. The description would be the budget, which is what we agree on as we move forward. It could handle the discrepancies, for example, of forestry. Say we had forestry of 18 members and 4 members don't want to use forestry. Well, the quick math on that would be to say, what's the aggregate total of the budget need for forestry? And instead of distributing over 18 and saying that's your share in the budget, we distribute it over the 14 members that are willing to pay and support that service, and then put that into the budget. So the budget would act basically as an addendum or an appendix to the MOU each year. So we'd carry that basic MOU through for a 5-year period, and it could change a little bit or morph a little bit in an annual cycle with the budget. So that's how I see this moving forward, Walter.
Does
So
that
it won't be, oh, sorry. So as a follow-up, so there's going to be a core to it, the MOU, that is not negotiable, so to speak. And then there's going to be a negotiable part beyond that. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, I think that was when they clearly identified that. The category 1 pieces are the non-negotiable core pieces of the MOU. This is understood, this is the service we provide. These are the services that members in category 2 that members have said, look, we really want to support this. We want to have this service. We want to continue this service. Those are category 2. Category 3 service level agreements would be in place for things that might require levy funding that are agreed upon between the municipality and the NVCA, or a service level agreement that doesn't involve any levy, that just acknowledges that you, like say, for example, if you wanted us to do your source water protection work, which we do for several municipalities, we already have agreements in place for that. The other thing that would happen in the sort of one joint MOU is if we do have service level agreements, they would all be dropped into, we'd identify those agreements. The government has asked us to identify anything that the municipalities pay for and just describe the work that we do. So that's what we're trying to accomplish through the programs and services.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll need to vote on this, and it'll be moved by Councillor Mercer and seconded by, I'm going to need a seconder because Deputy Mayor Michael Smith is unavailable, Vice Chair Gail Little. Resolved that the Board of Directors approve staff report number 39-08-22, Board of Directors regarding an update of the inventory of programs and services. And if you would cast your votes now, that would be wonderful. I see a yes from Member Mankdalo and Member Mercer and Mayor Allen and Member Watson and Member Pinto.
And through the chair, that motion has carried.
Marvelous. And so now I will ask for Director Flanagan to do a brief presentation on what we're going to see in the budget. The budget, just for everyone's edification, as I'm pretty sure you saw in the report, will not be coming to us for actual approval. We're just sending it off. Today's vote is to send it off to the to our member municipalities to for our our staff to have a comment on it. And so take it away, Director Flanagan.
Thank you. And through the chair was correct. You, as our current sitting board of directors, will not be approving our budget in December like you have done in the past number of years. You may remember your very first year, you approved our budget in March. And that is what is going to again happen when our new board comes into effect at the January AGM. However, the Conservation Authorities Act does require that we give notice to our member municipalities, both for staff and councils, to be able to review and provide comments if they wish. Because of that, we still need to have approval from this board in order to send it out to the municipalities for said discussion. We have extended it. The CA Act does require that we give a 30-day notice. We have extended it. It's going to have a 90-day notice. Actually, I think it's a few more days than 90 days in total, but they'll basically have till the end of February to provide any comments back to us before the new board will approve it in March. Because you are going to be approving it for distribution, I did want to go through a few things with you because you are familiar kind of with how we operate, and I didn't want to give the vision that we were trying to sneak anything past. So I just wanted to still quickly go through kind of what we've done for this year. As you are aware, last month, you did provide a $150,000 guideline as an increase to our general levy. And that was the guideline that staff went back and looked at for our budget. One of the things that we've found has really been important for us is the program overview. We introduced this to the MECP when they were doing their review of the Conservation Authorities Act, and we've really found that the public, members of our board, as well as our member municipalities, really enjoy seeing this. It gives you kind of a quick overview of what we do, how we're doing it, what our budget pressures are, what our service pressures are. And then it highlights each individual program a little bit in regards to how many full-time staff, what is our revenue and expenditures in each department. And it is attachment number 2 in your agenda package. So as I've already spoken to this, the budget process. So I'm going to skip over this one. Just a reminder that our draft budget is attachment number 1 in your agenda package. So budget pressures, I laugh and I put this one in, but I think it's so important to make sure that we're still making sure that everybody is aware that the MNRF is not increasing the flood transfer payment for something that they consider to be very core. And in fact, a few years ago, they actually cut us basically in half. We went from $188,000 a year they were giving us to $97,000 a year. And that just doesn't cut and cover the requirements that particular program needs. And it is a category 1 program. And so they're pushing that back onto the municipalities. Things that we are not able to contain within the current inflation rate: benefits, insurance premiums, software support. I mean, our insurance in 2022, when we got it, I almost fell off my chair. We budgeted for a fairly hefty increase, but we had over a 50% increase. It was astronomical. And yeah, it was a 50% increase. And so we had to, with this budget, not only put in the increase from the 2022, but then try and figure out what an increase was going to be for the 2023 renewal. The good news that we're hearing from our insurance brokers is that insurance premiums seem to be flattening out and actually declining a little bit. So hopefully we won't have too big of an increase when 2023 hits. But there's a number of reasons that insurance is an issue. And one of them is just how busy we are. The more permits and applications that we do, the more insurance we pay. The more claims that we have, the more insurance we pay. So it's not just insurance rates, but it's the fact that we are one of the busiest CAs in the province as well when it comes to permitting and planning. Other uncontrollable costs like property taxes, and then again with inflation, maintenance, material, supply costs, we're all feeling it at home, and it's hitting us at the CA as well. So how did we address these pressures? So we worked really hard to come up with a responsible budget. I really have to take a moment and really recognize the managers and the senior management team of really taking those concerns and really working hard to create a budget that I felt very comfortable bringing into this board. We look at things like 3-year trends. We look at all of our expenditures, see where savings could be found. We increase potential revenues. We apply for as many grants as possible. And given that we were given a $150,000 guideline, staff are really pleased to present a budget of $137,048.95 increase to the general levy, which does come in well below the approved guideline. So just quickly, some revenue highlights. I do this every year. If there's a swing of 5,000 in any direction, just a quick explanation. Special benefiting projects. We have a new project under fisheries with our stewardship program that has increased that. We have additional municipal contributions. Again, that has to do with projects that specific municipalities have us working on. And so it's like special grants that we get from the municipalities. Other provincial sources decreased, as did federal sources. And that's just primarily due to the funding grants that we had being completed with our stewardship program and no additional grants coming in the door. However, our biggest increase is under regular contributions, which includes contributions, which is grants from private sector, as well as donations. And you see a very large increase of $172,000. And that is because our stewardship program has really put their feet on the ground and have really been applying for a lot of different grants in the private sector and been very successful or anticipating their success at it. Our user fees, we've also done some increasing. Our permitting for Section 28 this year has been through the roof. We surpassed what we budgeted for 2022 a couple of months ago, and we were only halfway through the year. So we've increased what we're expecting to come in for Section 28. We did do a few little decreases in things like site plans and subdivisions, just simply because the revenue hasn't been there for the last few years. In education, we did an increase of $65,000. A large chunk of that has to do with Camp Tiffin. We weren't really sure how 2022 was going to be when we did our budget because of COVID. And thankfully, COVID did not hinder Camp Tiffin this year, and we sold out with waiting lists. So we're anticipating that again next year. So we were able to increase some of the revenues that we had dropped in 2022. Tiffin operations, we've put in an increase. That's primarily due to weddings and events. We're seeing a really good uptake in those, and it helps us pay for a land staff and an event facilitator so that levy doesn't have to cover those costs. GIS and technical support had a small increase of $12,000. That is because Conservation Ontario was successful in obtaining a grant, and they have asked us to provide some GIS and technical support, of which we'll receive just over $12,000 for. And then finally, I'm excited to say that investment income is finally going to start increasing again. Our GICs have been skyrocketing. The renewals have been like triple what they were the last few years. So we are able to say that we're going to increase our investment income by at least $25,000 next year. Some expenditure highlights. The big one obviously is the wages. We are looking at a $558,000 increase in wages, which sounds astronomical. However, I will say that just around 450,000 of that is 4 new positions that were created by the NVCA that have zero impact to levy. They are 100% covered by increases to revenue or decreases to expenditures. And then the remaining about 100,000, just over 100,000 has to do with our cost of living increase and CPP, those sorts of increases that come through. There was a really small increase to materials and supplies general, just again, inflation. Our cost of trees, we're anticipating a decrease just because we don't think we're going to be planting quite as many trees next year. Transportation costs, this is thanks to you at the board by approving the ability to have some of our board meetings done online. It allows us to save some mileage funds in our governance section. I've already spoken about insurance. We did increase it 37,000. And then interest and bank charges, we did an increase of 11,000. The trend over the last number of years is a lot more people paying by credit card. And as you know, when people pay by credit card, you're hit with about a 3% charge. And that's a cost of doing business that we can't avoid. I have been very diligently working with different providers of credit card companies allowing us to collect money. We're currently using Square. Square was actually the cheapest one. I was able to negotiate a fairly good rate under 3%. And it doesn't fluctuate like a lot of the other ones do. A lot of them, if somebody uses like a gold Amex card, you get a premium charge of like a 4% versus like a regular blue Amex. So we've gotten that down and we have a much better handle on it, but we're still going to see an increase just due to people paying more. This slide, I show it every year, but it is in the budget, and I really would like you to take a look at the budget booklet. It just shows kind of what your apportionment was for your municipality last year, what it is for this year, what the levy was for last year, what the proposed levy is for this year, and then the dollar difference for each municipality. This is the same thing for our asset management plan. You'll see that as per our asset management plan that was passed last month, everybody's getting a decrease in their asset levy. So that'll help offset some of the increase that is in the regular general levy. So while we're looking at $137,000 increase to general levy, we are looking at about a $20,000 decrease in our asset management levy. So that's going to kind of offset and really make the overall levy be about $117,000 more next year. Some of our capital requirements for 2023 is the dam safety review. We were supposed to do that for the Utopia Dam, as well as some repairs at New Lowell this year. However, we've been spending a lot of time and effort at the Pretty River Dam and Dike. So we've deferred that to next year. What's very important to note is that $55,000 of funds within the capital requirements for 2023 have been deferred from 2022 into 2023. So the funds are already accounted for. So that's why you're seeing a really high number under capital requirements, but yet a really low number under the capital asset levy. And then we're going to do some standard parts replacements and computers and server upgrades. So the impact on the resident, you can see here what each department cost per resident per year is. We're all pretty small, and overall we're $13.62 or $13.62 per watershed resident for 2023. We also looked at it in relation to the current value assessment and what our cost is per 100,000. And as you can see, at our highest, at our 2013 budget, we were at $5.57 per 100,000, due in part to two factors: one, cost current value assessment going up, but also NVCA's really strong take at making sure that we're being as fiscally responsible as possible. We are at 4.94, which is slightly up from a few years ago, but still very much below where we were 10 years ago. And then how do we leverage your funds? So we take your municipal investment of the proposed $2.7 million of levy. We add provincial funding, federal funding, grants, other contributions, and user fees. And we more than double your investment for a total budget of $5.687 million. So that's all I have to say on the budget. At this point, I will open it up to see if there are any questions.
Thank you. And I'm looking for questions from the floor, and I see, who do I see here? I see Mayor Allen and I see Member Watson. Anyone else with questions at this time? And Member Magdalo. Anyone else? Okay, great. Let's start with Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. A good summary. Thank you, Cheryl. Can you go back over the wage and interprogram changes, 559,000, rounding it out, over the previous year's budget is a 14.5% increase. You talked about 4 staff, I believe. Can you just give us a little more detail about that 14.5% increase?
Yes.
And if we look at the actual instead of the budget for 2022 or projected actual, how is the projected actual going to come in compared to the 22 budget as well? Please.
Director Flanagan.
So through the chair, I'll speak to the 2022 actuals first. The actuals are going to be a little bit lower this year, but not by too much. But that's only because of some maternity leaves that occurred. Actually, in my programs, I had 2 maternity leaves, and we've had one member or one employee who did not return from maternity leave. We had let the contract person go, anticipating her return, and at the very last minute, she decided not to return. In doing so, it gave me an opportunity to do a little bit of a shuffle within my department and be able to not necessarily promote, but really give more opportunity to some of our current employees. And what that meant is the other person who's on maternity leave is going to be taking over some of those roles. So we have not filled that role. The general accountant and myself have been doing double duty for the last couple of months, and we're very much looking forward to January 1st when she returns. So that there'll be a little bit of savings there, but other than that, actuals should be pretty bang on. In regards to the 559,000, as mentioned, just over 400,000 of that is for new staff members. Keep in mind, I'm not paying those 4 staff members $100,000 a year. That is salary plus benefits plus OMERS plus wages, employer expenses and everything. It averages out to be about a $60,000 to $65,000 per year average between each employee. Some is higher, some is lower. We have gotten a event facilitator who is helping with our weddings and other events. That is 100% paid for by the event revenue. So it's doesn't impact levy at all. We have a GIS technician, GIS and database technician that is starting with us. And that is actually paid for through the savings that I have by not replacing the accounting clerk that I mentioned previously, and promoting Haley, who you all remember, into doing some of that role. And then we have Who else did we have? We have one position from source water and watershed science that is being paid for through source water protection money, as well as what's the word I'm looking for? The drinking water thing that Ryan does for each individual municipality that has signed on for it through the MOU. And then last but not least is a planner one. We've hired a new planner one. And again, that one is being paid for through additional revenues through the planning department so that we can keep up with the planning matters.
Does that
Follow on, if I may, Chair.
Yes, please.
I think that you'll get challenged on that from new councils. When you look at the summary of revenue and expenses, it is a 14.5% increase on the expense line. And when you compare revenues, the change of 179,000 increase over the 2.674 million revenue of previous year. You say some of these positions will be paid for, but bottom line is it's a 14.5% increase because of new staff hires. So I think you'll find that will be challenged. So thank you, Chair.
Through the chair, if I may just respond quickly. The one thing, and I don't disagree with you, there will be discussion on that, but what's going to be very important for people to note is if we eliminate those positions, we eliminate revenue. And so there's zero impact to levy. If we were to eliminate a position, all that does is eliminate revenue. So that's how it's going to be discussed and brought forward. And I don't disagree. There probably will be questions on it, but it's going to be very important for us to reiterate that this is a zero impact on levy and how we have these positions. All that does is affect our increased revenues.
Well, one follow on. You say it has a zero impact on revenues, and yet revenue is budgeted to increase 6.7%, and yet this expense item is increasing 14.5%. So you might be challenged when you say it has no impact on the bottom line. Thank you.
And through the chair, I 100% understand what you're saying, but if you look at the dollars to dollars, there's been a higher increase in revenues than there has been to the levy. So it is revenue paid for.
Thank you. Member Watson.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. I think I found one answer. Cheryl's presentation had, I guess she had pulled from some of the attachments here, and the two slides that were of interest to me was the one $13.62 per resident of the watershed, but there was another one there which talked about the municipalities separately, and I can't seem to find that one. I'm not sure if Cheryl's presentation could be sent to us or sent to myself that pulls from all these different attachments, I guess, because I'm looking from one to the other, because I find those numbers make a lot of sense to residents when you can say it's $4 and something per resident in your municipality. So if that could be sent out, so myself at least, but everyone, thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, all of those graphs were taken from the first two attachments. The one related to the municipality apportionment is page 3 of the draft budget. The one related to the $13.62 is taken from the program overview, which is attachment 2. And then the one in relation to the CVA, $4.97, that's actually taken from my staff report.
Thank you. But I think I take Member Watson's point. If you could just send out the PowerPoint to us all following the meeting, that would be really helpful, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Anything else, Member Watson?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Member Mantelo.
Mayor Allen covered my first question, which was about the 4 positions. I guess the only way that the board gets to vote on these is by supporting the budget. There's no individual approach to voting on individual hires. Is that right? Correct?
Director Flanagan?
So through the chair, that is correct. You as the board are responsible for the governance of the operation and the operational duties, which relates to the hiring, et cetera, falls under Doug, that's our CIO and the senior management team.
Right, I understand that. Thank you. My other question, Mayor McLeod, is could I have be reminded about the formula which is used to determine the individual the levies on each municipality? Is that related to current value assessment, or is it related to numbers of residents, or a combination? What's the formula?
Director Flanagan?
Thank you. Through the chair, this formula, what the MECP, which is actually now the MNRF, for those of you who don't know, Orders in Council just went through. The MNRF is now the ministry that we report to again. So we are no longer under MECP, now back under MNRF. So what they give us is a spreadsheet that shows each municipality's current value assessment from MPAC, and I believe it's 2 years behind. And then they take the current value assessment for the portion of your municipality that is within our watershed. So some municipalities are 100% in our watershed, some are just a small portion, maybe like 5% in our watershed. So they get the current value assessment for that. And then what they do is they get your percentage by taking your current value assessment within our watershed, dividing it by the total current value assessment within our watershed. And that's how you get an apportioned percentage.
Thank you.
And that any follow-up, Member Mangelo? No?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Bonato, and I see you, Member Mercer.
Sorry, I didn't really have any questions. I'm going to take all of this back to the municipality. I've seen these budgets for years, and in all honesty, I only look at the end, what cost it is to the municipality, an increase, and I think this is a very, very good budget. And that's the only comment I'll make.
Thank you. Member Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. Further to the point by Member Mangelo, has there ever been, I can think of at least 2 of the other boards I sit on have what are called HR committees where board members do get involved in hiring, other than say the CAO. Has there ever been an HR committee here of any kind? Can anybody speak to that?
Director Flanagan?
Yes, through the chair. We did previously have an HR committee just after we had the service delivery and operational review in 2012. It was held for about 2 years and then was disbanded because the board members felt that they weren't getting the appropriate information to them dispersed as a whole. But again, that committee still wasn't involved in the grains of the hiring of average staff members.
Just to follow up, I thought maybe you would have said that there was too much involvement, because on one of the boards I sit on, it's almost at least once a month that they're asking if there's a board member to sit in on an interview. It can be quite time consuming. So, okay, thank you for the answer.
Thank you. And so I think that is the end of the questions, unless anyone else has one more. And I have a couple of comments I'd like to make as well, which is I'd like to congratulate our staff on doing such diligent work on this budget. We did approve a $150,000 increase, and they managed to come in with 137, which is, boy, I'd like to handle my personal finances with that kind of efficiency and effectiveness. So thank you very much. And so I'm going to call the vote on this, which in the recommendation is moved by Councillor Mangelo and seconded by Councillor Matrasovs, that staff report number 41-08-22 BOD regarding NVC, oh, sorry, wrong one. Let's try that one again. Moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Patterson, that staff report number 40-08-2022-BOD regarding the NVCA's 2023 draft budget be approved, and further that the Board of Directors receive the draft budget for consideration, and further that staff be directed to distribute the 2023 draft budget booklet to municipalities for the consultation period. And I'll ask you to vote on that on the onboard app. Or I can shout them out. Member Watson is a yes. Mayor Pinto is a yes. Mayor Allen is a yes. Member Mercer is a yes. And Member Magdalo is a yes.
Through the chair, that motion looks like it's been carried unanimously.
Unanimously. Well, would you look at that? Wonderful. So that concludes our consent agenda, and we now move to other business. Are there any members who have other business at this time? Member Mercer, anyone else? I have one item that I would like to raise as well. And so I will turn to Member Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an item I've already talked to Chris Hibbert about, another board member and myself who is in a neighboring municipality, and this is regarding the permitting process. Sometimes we hear, or often we hear comments from people about what is the process of permitting. It's very onerous, and it seems like the complaints and the responsibility always falls on to the NVCA, that they are responsible for any glitches. But when you get into understanding the process, it often is the resident has not moved forward on a certain component or has not understood. So I had talked to Chris about, is there some way to modernize the permitting process? If all of us were to, say, as a board undertaking to give our input on this, apply for a permit, we'd get back a long list of deliverables. And today, with anything we're doing, technology has played a significant role in improving the flow and our understanding. Get texts and prompts and all sorts of things. So my question simply was how do we modernize this process so that residents understand when they need to move forward, when they are responsible, to understand where they're at in the process without having contact the NVCA. Is there something, and I understand that there's some technology, it's probably costly, but I just wonder if we could get a staff report for the next meeting. I understand that was the response to me, that they would do a staff report on any investigation they have done into some kind of proprietary software or a program, and something that allows people to know where they're at. Even my insurance company, I will know when things are due. I think we all realize that technology helped with this quite a bit. Thank you.
Okay, and so who would like to take that? CIO Hebner and Director Hibbert and Director Flanagan all are here. CIO Hebner, thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, to Member Mercer. Margaret, thank you very much for your question and reaching out to us earlier. The interesting thing, when we make hires in this organization, we also look at, what intellectual property can that hire bring to our organization? So when we hired Ben Krull from the TRCA, we were very fortunate in that we had someone that had a good solid 8 years of regulations planning, handling permitting in a large jurisdiction, and 8 years of planning. So he's privy to systems that are used in larger centers and larger operations. Prior to coming to the NVCA, I worked for a large municipality in Western Canada, and we were looking at that one door window. Everybody wants that silver bullet where that citizen can come into one counter and they can get everything they need from the municipal partner or the city partner. Unfortunately, the permitting aspects of the Conservation Authority can be very laborious at times, challenging. A lot of times there's a lot of misunderstanding. So what Ben has done through conversations with our director, Chris Hibbert, is they're looking at what our municipalities using to try to offer this one service window. And we're exploring the costs on that. And we're looking at what can we handle. We're working with our GIS IT team to try to see how does it fit for us. We may want to get all the bells and whistles, but you've heard the discussion here today. We hired 4 people, and that's a big discussion point for our members. So if I come back to you and say, well, I want to drop $500,000 into a one service window operation, I'm probably going to get a lot of feedback on that. So we will be delivering a report. And again, Margaret, I thank you for your question, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if members have them.
Follow-up, Member Mercer?
It's just, you know, when you're talking about costs, that may be something that municipalities may want to participate in from a cost standpoint, if it actually eases the permitting process, speeds it up, makes it clear. I think that is definitely worthwhile for municipalities to consider. But first we have to see what the costs are, I think, and what the options are. Would you agree, Doug?
Through the chair to Member Mercer, yes, I certainly would. I think that we just have to do a fulsome understanding of what those costs are before we move forward.
Thank you.
Any other business from the floor? Seeing none, I'm going to ask as well. Director Flanagan mentioned a few minutes ago about how the MECP, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, which was the provincial ministry, which took over the oversight of conservation authorities across Ontario in 2019. So it had been the Ministry of Natural Resources, and then of course that Natural Resources got 6 other things, so it's now MNRF, ABCD, and Ministry of Environment became Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, which made a bunch of sense. But about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, we received word that Conservation Authority oversight was going to move back to Natural Resources, mines, and all of those other things. And I think it is actually 7 letters now. Anyway, I wonder if either CAO Hebner or Director Flanagan could speak to what they feel are the implications of that. And the reason I ask is because I understand that what happened when responsibility moved from the MNR to the MECP, that there was a fair amount of provincial institutional knowledge that was lost. Because some of the people who were familiar with the work of conservation authorities didn't stay obviously with that, didn't move ministries. They stayed with MNR and not moving over to MECP. And so now we're moving back. And I wonder, could you please speak to the implications of this move and what you've experienced thus far? And I see Director Flanagan, and I also see CAO Hebner, so fight it out amongst yourself who wants to speak first.
Through the chair, I'm not going to speak to actual what the chair has requested. I'll let CAO do that. I just wanted to let you know that the ministry is now back to Natural Resources and Forestry.
Oh, just the 4 letters.
It is MNRF again.
Okay.
MECP is still MECP, although I don't understand how they can have the C when they're not involved in the conservation. But it is back to MNRF at this point.
Thank you for that update. I missed that. I appreciate it. CAO Hefner.
Through the chair, if I may, I'll address the C for Cheryl and for anyone else that's interested in how conservation remains in MECP. The Ministry of Environment does quite a bit of conservation work within their own park systems. They operate very similar to us as our lands department. So there's a real synergy between what we do in lands and conservation areas and what parks, provincial parks do in that area. They also have a tremendous amount of areas similar to what Grace Auble has, large forested areas within their watershed. There's many areas across the province of Ontario that are land tracts that are managed by the ministry. So they are very active in conservation. It's just not conservation authority work. It doesn't have that agency and regulatory aspect of it. So the move to MECP and to MNR and F is, I think it'll benefit conservation authorities in the long run. There was a tremendous amount of intellectual property that has been collected over the last 3 years through these exercises that we've done. The first move that MNR and F has put forward is that they were going to go back, and we're going to sort of go back and do a do-over. We're going to replay that whole strategy piece of the first part of the legislation that passed initially, and then there was the second phase of regulations. So we're going to go through that with MNR staff and really look at, you know, are we on the same page? I haven't heard if there will be any MECP staff moving into MNRNF in this transition. They did identify a leader for the conservation authorities. There is a key go-to person for conservation authorities to talk to at MECP, and we're not certain yet if that person is going to be making the move to the other ministry. One of the things that we might have that could impact this is when this initial reversal happened and it went from MNRF to MECP, there was a lot of resistance to share knowledge and share information. So we're hoping that everybody wants to put on their big boy and big girl pants and really work together to make this a really smooth transition. There's great people in both agencies. I think it's a really good mix. It gets away from that our flood information was in MNR and everything else was in MECP. It brings us all back into one band and one stream. It makes one question the term red tape, though. I don't know if it's going to continue and make more red tape for us or not, but we'll see. Both ministries have been very active. Minister Mancini, when he took over, very, very proactive. We are encouraging and have encouraged talks up until the change to continue on with the committee of AMO members and CA members and development members and continue to act as an intermediary between CAs and the government. So hopefully that will continue. And I think through our new leadership at CO with Angela Coleman in place, we're really well positioned there to move forward in that direction. Thank you very much, Chair. I'll take any questions if we have them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor regarding these pieces of information? All right, seeing none then, I believe that brings us to item number 14, which is the adjournment. And it is moved by Councillor Kane and seconded by Councillor Nielsen that this meeting adjourn at 9:57 a.m. To meet again on October 28th or at the call of the chair. And so I'll ask you all to vote on that through the onboard app, or you can just vote here. I'd have a yes from members Mangtalo and Watson, and Mayor Allen is a yes, and Mayor Pinto is a yes, and Member Mercer is a yes. And I'm going to assume this is going to pass. Director Flanagan, thank you.
Yes,
And just thank you. And just for everyone's information, our October meeting is also virtual, or is it in person?
Through the chair, I knew you were going to ask me that. I just started to look it up. Give me one.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, it's still a new thing, so I haven't memorized it yet.
Yeah, nor I. Sorry about that.
It's virtual? It is virtual.
Okay, so we'll see you back here on Zoom for our October meeting, and good luck to all of us who are trying to return. And this meeting stands adjourned at 9:58.
Good luck on all your endeavors through the election, and thank you very much for your participation. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Same to everyone.